The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, 1,000 crystal shards exploding like Zara Lennox's carefully constructed life. She stood frozen in the doorway of Ryan Kong's study, her hands still outstretched from where the glass had slipped through her numb fingers. The documents on his mahogany desk might as well have been a death certificate. Her death certificate. Contract terms in neat, clinical rows. $50 million. Marriage termination clause. Melissa Chin's name where hers should have been. Ryan didn't even turn around. He kept his back to her, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hong Kong harbor. His shoulders rigid with something that might have been shame if she'd still believed him capable of such an emotion. The skyline glittered behind him, oblivious and beautiful, just as it had been an hour ago when she'd still believed in fairy tales. When she'd still believed that love, intelligence, and hard work mattered more than bloodlines and investment portfolios. Say something. Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected. Steadier than she felt. 3 years of her life, compressed into this single moment of crystallized betrayal. 3 years of building Kong Industries' architectural vision. Of family dinners where his mother's smile never quite reached her eyes. Of quietly enduring the subtle comments about her background, her skin, her unsuitability. She'd told herself it was paranoia. She'd been catastrophically wrong. Ryan finally turned, and Zara almost wished he hadn't. His face was a mask of carefully constructed regret, the kind you'd practice in a mirror before delivering bad news to a subordinate. Not the face of a man addressing his fiancé of 3 years. Not the face of someone whose bed she'd shared just that morning, who'd kissed her goodbye and promised to be home early for dinner. Zara, you have to understand. It's business. Father made it clear that without the Chin family's investment, Kong Industries will collapse within 6 months. We're leveraged too heavily in the mainland expansion. The tariffs alone are killing us. Victoria Chin has the capital and the connections to save everything my grandfather built. Everything my father has dedicated his life to preserving. Everything? Zara repeated, her voice flat. Everything except me, apparently. I'm not part of the equation that needs preserving. Just a line item to be removed from the balance sheet. Don't be dramatic. Ryan's tone sharpened, and there it was. The edge she'd heard him use with contractors, with subordinates, with anyone he considered beneath the Kong family dignity. She'd never imagined it would be directed at her. You're a successful woman. You have your own firm. Lennox Architecture has a solid reputation. You'll be fine. This isn't personal. Not personal? The laugh that escaped her throat was harsh, foreign to her own ears. You're breaking our engagement to marry another woman for money, and it's not personal? Ryan, we were supposed to get married in 3 months. The invitations are at the printer. My dress is being altered. Your mother just took me to lunch yesterday to discuss the seating chart, and she smiled at me the entire time, knowing. Zara's breath caught. She knew. They all knew. How long have you known? Ryan had the decency to look away. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 42 days of lies. 42 days of him coming home to her, eating meals she'd prepared when she wasn't buried in her own architectural projects, making love to her while knowing he'd already signed her away. The nausea hit hard and fast, but Zara forced it down. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not yet. Not here in the sterile study with its leather-bound books that no one had ever read and its antique globe that Ryan had once spun while explaining his family's business empire to her, his finger-tracing trade routes and investment opportunities. She'd thought she was part of that empire. She'd been a fool. The Chins insisted on discretion until the contracts were finalized. Ryan continued. As if that explained anything. As if that made the betrayal somehow more palatable. Victoria Chin is very particular about publicity. Any hint of scandal before the engagement announcement could have jeopardized the entire deal. Melissa is her only daughter. She needs to be positioned correctly in the public eye. Positioned correctly, Zara echoed. Like a chess piece. Like a commodity to be traded. And that's what I was, wasn't I? A placeholder until the real heir to the throne could be properly installed. You're twisting everything. Ryan's frustration was palpable now, and Zara realized with a cold clarity that he actually believed he was the victim in this scenario. That she was being unreasonable for not understanding the impossible position his family's financial crisis had put him in. I cared about you, Zara. I still do. But I have responsibilities. My father, the company, hundreds of employees whose livelihoods depend on Kong Industries staying solvent. What would you have me do? Let everything collapse out of sentiment? I would have you be honest. The words came out quiet but cutting. I would have you treat me like a human being worthy of respect, not a problem to be managed with spreadsheets and NDAs. I would have you acknowledge that I spent 3 years investing not just in you but in your family's company. Or do you think those late nights redesigning the Shanghai complex happened by magic? Do you think the Tokyo merger facilities designed themselves? I poured my expertise, my reputation, and my firm's resources into Kong Industries because I believed in us, because I thought we were building something together. And you were compensated fairly for that work. Ryan shot back, and there it was, the final insult, the reduction of their entire relationship to a series of financial transactions. Your firm billed Kong Industries competitive rates for every project. You can't claim you were exploited. Zara stared at him. This man she'd thought she knew, and realized she was looking at a stranger. Or perhaps she was finally seeing clearly for the first time. The scales falling from eyes that had been willfully blind to the signs that had been there all along. The way his mother always introduced her as Ryan's friend, rather than his fiancé at family gatherings. The way his father's eyes would pass over her as if she were furniture when she contributed ideas in business meetings. The way extended family members would express surprise when told she owned her own successful firm, as if competence and ambition were qualities they hadn't expected to find in her. The pregnancy test, she said suddenly, the memory crystallizing with horrible clarity. 3 months ago. I found it in your bathroom trash. You said it must have been left by one of the housekeeping staff. That it was a mistake. Ryan's face went carefully blank, and Zara knew. She knew with a certainty that made her stomach heave. Melissa was already pregnant then, wasn't she? You'd already started seeing her. The deal was already in motion. Zara, don't. She held up a hand, needing the physical barrier between them. Don't you dare try to explain that away. Don't you dare tell me it was complicated or that I wouldn't understand the pressure you were under. You got another woman pregnant while we were engaged. While you were sleeping with me. While I was planning our wedding and dreaming about our future, and building my career around supporting yours. It happened once, Ryan said. And the casual dismissal in his tone was somehow worse than a full confession would have been. It was a mistake. We weren't even serious yet. The Chins and my father were just beginning negotiations. Melissa and I had too much to drink at a business dinner. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, Zara said, her voice breaking despite her best efforts. It meant you could stand here and pretend to love me while auditioning my replacement. It meant I was disposable, interchangeable. It meant that 3 years of my life, of my love, of my work and my trust and my dreams, counted for exactly nothing against your family's balance sheet. Ryan moved toward her then, his hand reaching out as if to comfort her, and Zara stumbled backward so violently she collided with the doorframe. The physical recoil seemed to surprise him, as if he genuinely hadn't anticipated that she might not want his touch anymore, as if the enormity of his betrayal hadn't quite registered in his carefully compartmentalized mind. Don't touch me, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Don't you ever touch me again. Zara, please. You're being irrational. I understand you're upset, but we can be civilized about this. My family is prepared to offer a generous severance package for the dissolution of our engagement. $2 million, plus full payment for any outstanding architectural contracts with Kong Industries. You'll be able to expand your firm, take on bigger projects. This could actually be an opportunity for you. The laugh that escaped her was brittle, edged with hysteria. A severance package. You're offering me a severance package for 3 years of my life. Like I'm an employee being laid off. Like I'm a contractor whose services are no longer required. I'm trying to be fair, Ryan insisted, and she could see the irritation creeping into his expression now. His patience with her emotional response was wearing thin. He wanted this to be clean, efficient, painless. He wanted her to take the money and disappear quietly so he could move forward with his new bride. His new investment deal. His new life that had no room for the inconvenient complication of the woman he'd promised forever. Fair, Zara repeated, testing the word on her tongue. Fair would have been honesty 6 weeks ago. Fair would have been telling me the truth when I found that pregnancy test instead of lying to my face. Fair would have been acknowledging that I'm a human being with feelings and dignity, not a liability to be managed with checkbook diplomacy. She turned toward the study door, needing to escape before the tears she'd been holding back broke through her carefully maintained composure. She would not cry in front of him. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her shatter completely. But Ryan's next words stopped her cold. My mother said you'd be difficult about this. She said women like you always are, always looking for ways to extract maximum value from situations. But I defended you, Zara. I told her you were different. I told her you'd understand that business sometimes requires difficult personal sacrifices. Was I wrong about that too? Women like you, the casual racism, the barely veiled contempt, hit her like a physical blow. She'd heard variations of that phrase before, whispered in corners at Kong family gatherings, implied in the raised eyebrows when she'd contributed ideas at business dinners, embedded in the questions about where she'd really grown up and how she'd managed to build such a successful firm. She'd told herself she was being oversensitive. She'd told herself that Ryan's love proved his family's prejudices didn't matter. She'd been wrong about everything. Women like me, Zara said softly, turning back to face him. You mean women who aren't Chinese enough for the Kong family dynasty? Women who don't come from old money and established connections? Women who had the audacity to build their own success instead of inheriting it? Is that what your mother meant, Ryan? Is that what you mean? Don't make this about race, Ryan said sharply. This is about business compatibility, about family alliances that make strategic sense. The Chin family has been in our social circle for generations. Melissa understands our world, our expectations, our responsibilities. She was raised for this kind of life. And I wasn't, Zara finished for him. I wasn't groomed and prepared and positioned for the honor of marrying into Kong royalty. I was just a talented architect who happened to catch your eye, who was convenient and competent enough to keep around until a better option materialized. A placeholder princess until the real one could be secured. You're oversimplifying, Ryan said, but his eyes shifted away from hers, unable to hold her gaze. My father made the final decision. The board agreed it was necessary for the company's survival. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Zara said. You chose money over integrity. You chose your family's approval over our relationship. You chose to lie to me for 6 weeks while I planned a wedding that was never going to happen. Those were all choices, Ryan. Own them. She walked out of the study then, her heels clicking against the marble with a finality that echoed through the vast Kong mansion. Behind her, she heard Ryan call her name, But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. If she stopped moving, she'd collapse. If she let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened, she'd break into pieces that could never be reassembled. The mansion felt like a maze suddenly, all the corridors and rooms that had become familiar over 3 years now hostile and alien. She passed the formal dining room where she'd sat through countless family dinners, smiling politely while Ryan's mother critiqued everything from her posture to her pronunciation of Cantonese dishes. She passed the conservatory where Ryan's father had once cornered her to ask pointed questions about her family background, her education, her firm's financial stability, as if conducting a background check on a potential security threat rather than welcoming his son's fiancé. The front door seemed miles away, and with each step, Zara felt the careful control she'd maintained in Ryan's study beginning to fracture. Her vision blurred. Her hands trembled. The engagement ring on her finger felt like a shackle suddenly, a physical manifestation of the trap she'd walked into so willingly, so blindly, so stupidly. She'd loved him. God help her, she'd actually loved him. She'd believed in him, in them, in the future they were supposed to build together. She'd defended him to her own friends when they'd expressed concern about his family's coldness toward her. She'd convinced herself that love would be enough to bridge the cultural and class divides that his family clearly saw as insurmountable. She'd been a fool. The front door opened before she reached it, and Victoria Chin swept into the foyer like a perfectly dressed storm, all designer elegance and calculated intimidation. Ryan's mother followed close behind, the two women clearly having timed their entrance for maximum impact. They'd been waiting, watching, orchestrating this entire scene like the business transaction they'd always seen it as. "Miss Lennox," Victoria said, her voice smooth as silk and just as dangerous. "I understand you've been informed of the new arrangements. I hope Ryan explained things clearly. We're prepared to make this transition as painless as possible for everyone involved." Zara stopped, her body going rigid with barely contained fury. These women had plotted her removal like generals planning a campaign. They'd calculated the optimal moment, the precise financial incentive, the cleanest execution. They'd reduced her entire existence to a problem requiring solution, an obstacle requiring removal. "Painless?" Zara repeated, her voice hollow. "You think there's any way to make this painless? You conspired to destroy my life, to humiliate me, to treat me like garbage to be discarded, and you think a payoff makes it painless. Don't be melodramatic, dear," Ryan's mother said, her smile tight and condescending. "Women like you are resilient. You'll find another man. You'll move on. In a few years, you'll probably thank us for forcing you to realize you were reaching above your station." The words hung in the air, so casually cruel that Zara couldn't immediately process them. Above her station. As if the Kong family were royalty and she was a peasant who'd had the audacity to dream beyond her predetermined place in the social hierarchy. As if her Ivy League education, her successful firm, her talent and intelligence and work ethic counted for nothing against the accident of her birth and the color of her skin. "Reaching above my station," Zara said slowly, each word deliberate and cutting. "Is that what you think? That I should be grateful you let me play princess for 3 years before reminding me of my place? I think you should be pragmatic," Victoria interjected smoothly, stepping between Zara and Ryan's mother with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to controlling every conversation, every situation, every outcome. "You're a businesswoman, Miss Lennox. Surely you understand that sometimes personal feelings must be set aside for practical considerations. My daughter is carrying the Kong heir. That changes everything. Family legacy, bloodlines, these things matter in our world." "Your world," Zara said, her voice gaining strength even as her heart splintered. "Not mine. I was never actually part of your world, was I? I was a visitor. A guest who overstayed her welcome. A mistake that needed correcting before it became permanent. If you want to see it that way, that's your choice, Ryan's mother said, examining her manicured nails with studied indifference. But the reality is quite simple. Ryan needs to marry Melissa. The contracts are signed. The announcement will be made next week. You can accept the generous compensation we're offering and leave with your dignity intact. Or you can make this difficult and leave with nothing but scandal attached to your name. Your firm's reputation would suffer terribly from that kind of publicity. The threat was delivered with such casual elegance that it took Zara a moment to register it fully. They were threatening her business now. The firm she'd built from nothing, the reputation she'd earned through years of brilliant work and tireless dedication. They would destroy it all if she didn't disappear quietly, if she dared to challenge their carefully constructed narrative. You'd ruin my career to silence me, Zara said. Not a question but a statement of fact. You'd spread rumors, tank my contracts, poison my professional relationships, all to protect the Kong family image. We'd protect what's ours, Victoria said simply, as anyone with sense would do. You made the mistake of thinking you belonged to this family, Miss Lennox. You never did. You were a pleasant distraction for Ryan, nothing more. He's told me himself that he enjoyed your company, your intelligence, even your ambition. But enjoyment isn't the same as commitment. Not in families like ours. The words were designed to cut, and they succeeded. Zara felt each syllable like a blade, slicing through the last remnants of her illusions about Ryan, about his family, about the life she'd thought they were building. He'd discussed her with Victoria. He'd reduced their relationship to pleasant distraction and enjoyment, while this woman plotted her removal. While Melissa carried his child and planned her own ascension to the position Zara had believed was hers. I want to hear Ryan say it, Zara said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. I want to hear him explain to me, in his own words, why I wasn't worth fighting for. Why 3 years of my love, my loyalty, my work, my dreams, my partnership, counted for less than $50 million and his family's approval. Ryan has explained everything you need to know, his mother said dismissively. There's nothing more to discuss. Sign the papers, take the money, and go. That's the civilized way to handle this. Civilized? Zara laughed, the sound bitter and broken. You keep using that word like it means something coming from people who are acting like Victorian aristocrats trading marriage contracts and human lives. There's nothing civilized about what you've done to me. There's nothing civilized about lies and betrayal and casual cruelty dressed up in designer clothes and polite language. Your emotional response is noted, Victoria said, her tone suggesting she found Zara's pain both tedious and unseemly. But emotion doesn't change facts. Melissa is pregnant with Ryan's child. The merger requires this marriage. Kong Industries needs the Chin family investment. These are immutable realities that your feelings, however valid they may seem to you, cannot alter. You're an intelligent woman, Miss Lennox. Act like one. Take the settlement and move forward with your life. Take the blood money, you mean, Zara said. Take the payoff for my silence, my compliance, my willingness to pretend that this never happened, that I never mattered, that my heart wasn't ripped out and my future wasn't stolen and my dignity wasn't trampled by people who see human beings as chess pieces to be moved around their board. Such dramatics. Ryan's mother sighed, as if Zara were a child throwing a tantrum rather than a woman responding to devastating betrayal. This is exactly why you were never suitable for this family. You're too emotional, too reactive, too unable to separate personal feelings from practical necessity. Melissa understands discretion. She understands duty. She understands that marriages in families like ours are partnerships built on more than romantic sentiment. Marriages in families like yours are prisons, Zara shot back. built on money and social status and keeping up appearances no matter how rotten everything is underneath the surface. I feel sorry for Melissa. I feel sorry for the child she's carrying. Growing up in a family where love is a weakness and people are commodities must create truly damaged human beings. The slap came so fast that Zara didn't see it coming. Ryan's mother's palm connected with her cheek with a crack that echoed through the foyer, the shock of it more stunning than the pain. For a moment, everything froze. Victoria's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine emotion Zara had seen from her. Ryan's mother looked almost satisfied, as if Zara had finally provoked her into revealing the violence that had been lurking beneath her polished exterior all along. "You will not speak about my family that way," Ryan's mother hissed, her composure cracking for the first time. "You will not stand in my home and insult us while we offer you more money than someone like you could earn in a decade. You should be grateful. You should be on your knees thanking us for being so generous when we could just as easily destroy you completely." Zara's cheek burned, but she didn't raise her hand to it. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her flinch or cower or retreat. Instead, she stood perfectly still, letting the moment stretch out, letting them see the steel beneath the shock, letting them understand that they hadn't broken her. They just freed her from any remaining illusion that they were capable of decency. "Someone like me," Zara said softly, each word precise and cold. "You mean someone who wasn't born into wealth and privilege. Someone who had to earn everything through talent and hard work instead of inheriting it. Someone whose skin color and family background don't meet your exacting standards for Kong family breeding stock. Just say it plainly. You're racists hiding behind class pretensions and business necessity. At least have the courage to own what you are." "Get out," Ryan's mother said, her face flushed with anger. "Get out of this house before I have security remove you. Sign the papers or don't, but you're leaving now. And if you breathe one word of this to the press, if you try to create any scandal or damage Ryan's reputation, I will personally ensure that your little architecture firm never gets another contract in this city. I know every developer, every investor, every planning commissioner. One word from me and you're finished professionally." "Is that supposed to frighten me?" Zara asked and was surprised to find she meant it. The fear that should have accompanied such a comprehensive threat was absent, replaced by something harder and colder. Something that felt almost like clarity. "You're going to destroy my reputation anyway. The moment I walk out that door, you'll start spinning your narrative. The gold digger who couldn't handle being replaced. The desperate social climber who seduced Ryan and threw a fit when she got what she deserved. You'll make me the villain in your story no matter what I do or don't do. Then you might as well take the money," Victoria said pragmatically, her composure restored. "If the outcome is the same regardless, at least secure your financial future. $2 million is nothing to sneeze at, Miss Lennox. You could relocate. Start over somewhere your reputation isn't tainted by association with this family. San Francisco, perhaps. Or New York. Somewhere you can rebuild without the shadow of this unfortunate situation following you." Unfortunate situation. As if 3 years of deliberate deception and calculated betrayal could be reduced to such an antiseptic phrase. As if Zara's shattered heart and stolen future were merely inconvenient complications in their otherwise orderly execution of dynastic business planning. "I don't want your money," Zara said, and the word surprised even her. She hadn't known she was going to refuse until the declaration left her lips. But the moment she said it, she knew it was right. Taking their money would make her complicit in her own erasure. It would validate their belief that everyone had a price, that dignity and self-respect could be purchased and discarded like any other commodity. Keep it. Buy yourselves whatever you think it will buy. A clear conscience, maybe, though I doubt $2 million is enough to purchase that, even for people as morally bankrupt as you. She yanked the engagement ring from her finger, the diamond that Ryan had presented to her 3 years ago on a beach in Maui, promising forever and meaning nothing. She threw it at Victoria's feet, watching it bounce once against the marble before skittering across the polished floor. The gesture was melodramatic, she knew, but it felt necessary. A physical severing of the last tie binding her to this family and their poisonous world. "Miss Lennox, don't be foolish," Victoria began, but Zara was already moving toward the door, her body operating on autopilot while her mind struggled to process the enormity of what had just happened. What was still happening? The complete annihilation of everything she'd believed about her life, her future, her worth. The front door opened before she reached it, and Zara's forward momentum nearly carried her into the man entering the foyer. She stumbled back, her vision still blurred with unshed tears, and looked up into a face that was startlingly familiar yet completely foreign. He had Ryan's bone structure, the same sharp cheekbones and strong jaw that characterized the Kong family genetics. But where Ryan's eyes held calculated ambition tempered by weakness, this man's eyes were dark pools of something far more dangerous. Intelligence, certainly. Power, absolutely. But also a kind of amused cruelty that suggested he found the entire world to be a game played for his entertainment. "Uncle," Ryan's mother said, her voice strangled with surprise and something that might have been fear. "We weren't expecting you. Ryan said you were in Seoul." "Uncle." The word registered slowly in Zara's shocked brain. Kong Desung. Daniel Kong. Ryan's estranged uncle. The black sheep of the Kong family. The subject of whispered conversations that always ended abruptly when she entered rooms. Was she? Desung's eyes never left Zara's face. Departing, I mean, or was she being driven out? There's a distinction, isn't there? One implies choice. The other implies coercion. Given the red mark on her cheek and the ring on the floor, I'm going to guess coercion was involved. The casual mention of the slap made Ryan's mother stiffen, her face going carefully blank. Victoria looked between them with calculating eyes, clearly trying to determine whether Desung's presence represented a threat or an opportunity. Zara just stared at this man who'd walked into the worst moment of her life like an avenging angel dressed in an immaculately tailored black suit that probably cost more than her car. "I slapped her because she was being disrespectful," Ryan's mother said defensively. "She insulted this family, insulted Melissa, insulted the very generous offer we made to ease her transition out of Ryan's life. She's being emotional and irrational and frankly embarrassing herself." "Emotional," Desung repeated, his voice dropping to something dangerous. How strange that women are always called emotional when they respond appropriately to being treated like garbage. "Tell me, sister-in-law, how would you respond if someone you loved betrayed you, lied to you for 6 weeks, got another woman pregnant while engaged to you, then offered you money to disappear quietly? Would you be rational and composed? Would you smile politely and thank them for the opportunity to have your heart ripped out?" "That's not what happened," Victoria interjected, but her voice lacked conviction. They all knew exactly what had happened. The truth hung in the air between them, undeniable despite their attempts to reframe it as something more palatable. "Isn't it?" Desung turned to Victoria, his smile sharpening into something predatory. "You orchestrated this entire situation, didn't you? You saw that Kong Industries was drowning in debt, that my incompetent brother had leveraged everything on expansion deals that were never going to pay off. You saw an opportunity. Offer your capital and your connections in exchange for your daughter marrying into the Kong family name. Secure Melissa's social status and your own influence over Kong Industries operations. It's actually quite brilliant in a sociopathic sort of way." "Business is business," Victoria said coolly. "I didn't create Ryan and Melissa's situation. They created it themselves. I simply saw a way to turn an unfortunate circumstance into a mutually beneficial arrangement." An unfortunate circumstance, Zara said, her voice breaking on the words. Is that what you call your daughter sleeping with my fiancé? Is that what you call a pregnancy that destroyed my life? An unfortunate circumstance. I call it reality, Victoria said bluntly. Melissa is pregnant with a Kong heir. You are not. That simple biological fact changes everything. In our world, legacy matters. Bloodlines matter. The continuation of family names and fortunes matters. You're a lovely woman, Miss Lennox, and I'm sure you're very talented at your profession. But you cannot give Ryan what Melissa can give him. A child. An heir. A connection to the Chin family empire. These are things that matter more than romantic feelings or personal preferences. A child, Zara repeated numbly. That's what this comes down to. A child that was conceived through betrayal. A child that exists because Ryan couldn't keep his promises or his pants zipped. And somehow that makes him the victim who needs saving, and me the obstacle that needs removing. No one is calling you an obstacle, Ryan's mother said, though her tone suggested that was exactly what she considered Zara to be. We're simply acknowledging reality. The pregnancy changes everything. Ryan must marry Melissa. The family must protect the heir. These are non-negotiable facts. Your feelings about those facts, while understandable, are ultimately irrelevant. Irrelevant, Zara said, the word hollow in her mouth. 3 years of my life are irrelevant. My love, my work, my loyalty, my dreams, all irrelevant. Because a child exists that shouldn't exist. Because Ryan betrayed me, and you're all willing to sacrifice me to cover up his mistakes and save your precious company. It's not personal, Victoria said again, as if repetition would somehow make the lie more convincing. It's simply the reality of how families like ours operate. Marriages are alliances. Relationships are transactions. Love is a pleasant bonus but never the foundation. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move forward with your life. Move forward, Zara laughed, the sound brittle and broken. Yes, I should just move forward. Forget that I was engaged to a man who got another woman pregnant. Forget that his family threatened my career and slapped me in their foyer. Forget that everything I believed about my life was a lie. Just take the money and move forward like none of this ever happened. Like I never mattered at all. You did matter, Desung said quietly, and something in his tone made everyone turn to look at him. He'd been watching the exchange with the detached interest of someone watching a particularly engaging play, but now his expression had shifted to something more focused, more purposeful. You mattered enough that they had to orchestrate this entire elaborate scheme to remove you. If you were truly irrelevant, they would have simply broken the engagement cleanly. But they couldn't do that, could they? Because you're too talented, too well-connected in the architecture community, too valuable to Kong Industries operations. They needed leverage. They needed the pregnancy, the investment deal, the financial crisis. They needed a narrative that made your removal seem inevitable rather than chosen. His words cut through the fog of Zara's devastation, illuminating angles she hadn't considered through the haze of her pain. He was right. If she'd been as insignificant as they claimed, they wouldn't have needed such an elaborate justification for ending the engagement. They would have simply discarded her and moved on. The fact that they'd constructed this entire framework of necessity and inevitability suggested they'd actually feared her response, her potential power to damage their carefully constructed plans. What are you suggesting? Victoria asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. That we should have kept this charade going? That Ryan should have married Miss Lennox despite the pregnancy, despite the investment requirements, despite everything. I'm suggesting, Desung said, moving closer to Zara with the casual confidence of a predator circling wounded prey, that you've made a catastrophic miscalculation. You assumed Miss Lennox would take your money and disappear quietly because that's what people in her position usually do when faced with the combined power of the Kong and Chin families. You assumed she had no other options, no other allies, no other sources of leverage. You assumed wrong. She doesn't have options, Ryan's mother said. But there was uncertainty creeping into her voice now. She has a small architecture firm, some professional connections, but nothing that could stand against the resources we command. You of all people should know that, Daniel. You've built your empire on understanding power dynamics and knowing when someone is truly cornered. Oh, I know she's cornered. Desung agreed, and for the first time, he smiled directly at Zara. It was not a comforting smile. It was the smile of a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. I also know that cornered animals are the most dangerous, especially when they're intelligent, talented, angry, and have absolutely nothing left to lose. Miss Lennox, do you have anything left to lose? Zara stared at him, her mind struggling to keep pace with whatever game he was playing. She should be wary of him, she knew. Everything she'd heard about Kong Desung suggested he was as dangerous as the family that had just destroyed her, perhaps more so. He'd built his fortune through methods the Kong family considered too ruthless, too criminal, too far beyond the pale of acceptable business practices. He had connections to organized crime, to politicians and enforcers and people who solved problems through violence when negotiation failed. He was not a savior. He was a different kind of predator. But he was also offering her something no one else had. Recognition of her value. Acknowledgement of the injustice done to her. And something else, something she could see forming behind his calculating eyes. A weapon she could use against the people who just tried to erase her from existence. No, Zara said slowly, her voice gaining strength. I don't have anything left to lose. They've taken everything that mattered. My relationship, my trust, my future. They're threatening my business, my reputation, my professional standing. They've reduced me to a problem requiring solution and offered me money to accept my own erasure. What exactly do I have left that they could take from me? Nothing, Desung said with satisfaction. Which makes you incredibly powerful if you're willing to embrace that power. They're afraid of you, Miss Lennox. Terrified, actually. Why else would they work so hard to neutralize you? Why else would they offer such a generous settlement for your silence? Why else would they threaten your business before you'd even left their house? They know you could destroy their carefully arranged merger. You could go to the press with your story. You could leverage your professional connections to make their lives extremely difficult. You could make Ryan's marriage to Melissa the scandal of the year instead of the elegant alliance they're planning to present to society. She won't do any of that, Victoria said, but she'd moved closer to Ryan's mother, as if seeking safety in numbers. She has too much to lose. Her firm's reputation would suffer along with ours. No one wants to work with an architect who creates public scandals around her personal life. She'd be branded as unstable, unprofessional, vindictive. It would ruin her. Would it? Desung asked, and now he was standing directly beside Zara, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive and undeniably masculine. Or would it make her famous? The talented architect who stood up to one of Hong Kong's most powerful families? The woman who refused to be silenced when betrayed? The professional who chose integrity over a payoff? I can think of several progressive firms, several international clients who would find that narrative very appealing, who would see hiring her as a statement about their own values. You're delusional, Ryan's mother said, but there was fear in her eyes now, real fear, because Desung was right and they all knew it. The narrative could be controlled, but it could also spin wildly out of their influence depending on how Zara chose to tell her story. And in an era where social media could amplify personal experiences into movements, where reputation could be destroyed or built through viral moments, Zara actually held more power than they'd calculated. Am I? Desung pulled out his phone, tapping the screen with casual efficiency. Let me show you something. This is the contact information for 3 international news outlets, 2 architecture trade publications, and 1 very influential society blogger who loves nothing more than exposing hypocrisy among Hong Kong's elite families. One message from Miss Lennox, and your carefully planned merger announcement becomes a scandal about betrayal, racism, and the Kong family's treatment of the talented woman who helped save their business. How do you think your investors will respond to that, Victoria? How do you think society will view Melissa's pregnancy when they learn it was conceived while Ryan was engaged to another woman? You wouldn't, Victoria breathed, her composure finally cracking completely. Daniel, your brother's company is at stake. Your family name, your nephew's future. You can't possibly want to see all of that destroyed over this woman. This woman? Desung said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Has a name. Zara Lennox. Use it. And as for what I want, I stopped caring about my brother's company or the Kong family name 20 years ago when they decided my methods were too distasteful for their refined sensibilities. Gregory can rot for all I care. His company can collapse. His legacy can crumble into dust. I have no loyalty to the people who exiled me and spent 2 decades pretending I don't exist except when they need something from me. Then what do you want? Ryan's mother asked desperately. Why are you here? Why are you involving yourself in this situation? Because I see an opportunity? Desung said simply, and his hand came to rest on Zara's shoulder, warm and solid and somehow grounding despite the fact that she barely knew him. An opportunity to hurt my brother's interests while helping someone who deserves better than what this family has given her. An opportunity to disrupt your carefully laid plans and remind you all that power is not as absolute as you believe it to be. And an opportunity to offer Miss Lennox something infinitely more valuable than your pathetic $2 million settlement. What could you possibly offer her that we haven't? Victoria demanded, though she was already backing toward the door as if preparing to flee. Money? She's refused ours. Influence? You're estranged from this family. Protection? From what? She's not in danger. She's simply being asked to accept reality and move on with appropriate compensation. I'm offering her revenge, Desung said, and the word hung in the air like a blade. Real, comprehensive, devastating revenge against everyone who just tried to erase her from existence. I'm offering her power, resources, and the means to take everything from the people who thought they could discard her like garbage. I'm offering her a partnership that would make your merger look like children playing house. Zara's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This was insane. This man was insane. She should leave, should run, should get as far away from this toxic family and their complicated dynamics as possible. But something in Desung's words called to a part of her she hadn't known existed until this moment. A part that wanted to burn everything down. A part that wanted to see Ryan's face when he realized she wasn't disappearing quietly. A part that wanted Victoria and Ryan's mother to understand that she was not a victim to be managed but a force to be reckoned with. What kind of partnership? Zara heard herself ask, and was shocked by how steady her voice sounded. As if she were negotiating a business contract instead of contemplating an alliance with a man who reportedly had connections to some of Hong Kong's most dangerous criminal organizations. Daniel, don't do this, Ryan's mother pleaded, and there was genuine panic in her voice now. Whatever you're planning, whatever scheme you're concocting, please. Gregory is your brother. Ryan is your nephew. Don't destroy them over some misguided sense of justice for a woman you don't even know. I know enough, Desung said, his eyes never leaving Zara's face. I know she's brilliant, talented, and far too good for my worthless nephew. I know she's been treated abominably by people who should have valued her. I know she has every right to want revenge. And I know that I have the resources, the connections, and the motivation to help her achieve it. You want to hurt Gregory, Victoria said, understanding dawning in her expression. This isn't about Miss Lennox at all. This is about your decades-old feud with your brother. You're using her pain as a weapon against him. I'm offering her a weapon against him, Desung corrected. Whether she chooses to use it is entirely up to her. But yes, I won't pretend to be motivated purely by altruism. Helping Zara destroy your merger plans would give me immense personal satisfaction. Watching my brother's company collapse because he sacrificed the one person holding it together would be poetic justice. And ensuring that Ryan's marriage to Melissa becomes a scandal instead of a triumph would be the perfect revenge for 20 years of being treated like the family embarrassment. You're using her, Ryan's mother accused. You're manipulating her emotions, exploiting her pain, turning her into a weapon for your own purposes. That's monstrous, Daniel. Even for you. Is it using someone if you're honest about your motivations? Desung asked, and his hand squeezed Zara's shoulder gently, as if reminding her that she was part of this conversation, not just a pawn being discussed by others. I've told Miss Lennox exactly what I want and why. I'm not pretending to be her white knight or her savior. I'm offering her an alliance based on mutual benefit and shared enemies. That's more honesty than your family has shown her in 3 years. Zara's mind was racing, trying to process the implications of what Desung was proposing. An alliance against the Kong family. Against Ryan and his parents and Victoria Chin and everyone who'd conspired to humiliate her. It was mad. It was dangerous. It was potentially career suicide. It was also the most appealing thing anyone had offered her in the last hour of hell she'd endured in this mansion. What exactly are you proposing? Zara asked, turning to face Desung fully. Up close, he was even more imposing than she'd realized. Taller than Ryan, broader through the shoulders, with an intensity that made Ryan's calculated ambition look like child's play. There was something predatory about him, something that suggested he'd survive things Ryan couldn't imagine and emerge stronger, harder, more dangerous. What kind of alliance? What would you expect from me? Marry me? Desung said, and the words were so unexpected, so audacious, that Zara actually laughed. A shocked, slightly hysterical laugh that echoed through the foyer like breaking glass. You cannot be serious, she said, waiting for the punchline, for the indication that he was joking or testing her or playing some elaborate game. But his expression remained completely serious. His dark eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. I'm completely serious, Desung said. Marry me. Tonight, if possible. Certainly within the next few days. Make it legal, make it public, make it impossible for them to ignore or minimize. Become my wife. Take the Kong name through me instead of through Ryan, and gain access to resources that would make Victoria's $50 million investment look like pocket change. This is insane, Victoria said, her voice rising to something close to panic. Daniel, you can't marry her. You don't know her. She doesn't know you. This is a transparent attempt to sabotage our agreement with the Kong family. It's vindictive and cruel and completely inappropriate. Inappropriate, Desung repeated, his smile returning. Yes, I imagine from your perspective it would be. Having the woman you just tried to pay off marry into the Kong family anyway, through a route you didn't anticipate, with access to resources and influence that dwarf yours, must seem very inappropriate indeed. Almost as inappropriate as bribing my nephew to abandon his fiancé, so your daughter could claim his name and his child's legitimacy. Why would you do this? Zara asked, ignoring the others, focusing entirely on Desung. You said you'd be honest about your motivations. So be honest. Why would you marry a woman you don't know to help her get revenge on your family? What do you actually get out of this besides the satisfaction of causing them problems? Several things. Desung said, and she appreciated that he didn't try to soften his answer or make it more palatable. First, as I said, I despise my brother and would enjoy seeing his plans fall apart. Second, marrying you would give me a legitimate reason to involve myself in Kong Industries business, which I've been excluded from for 20 years despite still technically holding shares. Third, you're talented and I could use someone with your architectural expertise for several developments I'm planning. Fourth, having a wife provides certain social advantages in business circles that prefer married men. And fifth, I find you fascinating and would enjoy the challenge of a partnership with someone as intelligent and strong-willed as you appear to be. You find me fascinating, Zara repeated flatly. You've known me for 15 minutes. I've known about you for 3 years, Desung corrected. I make it my business to know everything about Kong Industries and the people involved with it. I know you graduated top of your class from Cornell's architecture program. I know you started Lennox Architecture with a single client and grew it to a firm with 20 employees and multimillion-dollar contracts. I know you've won 3 international design awards. I know you speak 4 languages, play piano, and volunteer at a youth mentorship program teaching underprivileged kids about architecture and design. I know you're ambitious, talented, principled, and far too good for my nephew. I've been watching you waste your potential on that family for years. The revelation should have been creepy, Zara knew. The fact that this man had been monitoring her life, tracking her achievements, observing her relationship with his family, should have raised every red flag she possessed. But instead, she found herself oddly touched that someone had actually seen her accomplishments, had valued them enough to pay attention, had recognized that she was more than just Ryan's decorative fiancé. You've been watching me, Zara said. Why? Because you were interesting, Desung said simply. Because I wondered how long you'd last in that family before they broke you or you broke free. Because I recognized in you something I recognized in myself years ago. Ambition that terrifies people who think success should be inherited rather than earned. Intelligence that threatens people who mistake pedigree for competence. Strength that makes weak people feel inadequate. I've been waiting to see what would happen when they finally showed their true colors. I'm pleased to discover you're even more impressive when angry than you were when hopeful. This is manipulation, Ryan's mother said desperately. Zara, he's playing you, using your pain to serve his own agenda. Don't listen to him. Take our settlement and leave while you still can with some dignity intact. Dignity, Zara said, and the word tasted like ash. You slapped me in your foyer, threatened my career, called me unsuitable for your family, and now you want to lecture me about dignity? You've already destroyed whatever dignity I thought I had. The question now is whether I'm going to let you write the ending to this story or whether I'm going to write it myself. Write it yourself then, Desung said, pulling a business card from his pocket with practiced ease. But write it with better resources than you currently possess. My lawyers, my connections, my money, my influence. All of it at your disposal if you agree to this partnership. And before you ask, yes, there would be a prenuptial agreement protecting both of us. Yes, you would maintain control of your own firm. Yes, you could define the terms of our personal relationship however you want. I'm not asking you to love me, Zara. I'm asking you to use me as a weapon against the people who tried to destroy you. Zara took the card, her fingers trembling slightly as they closed around the expensive cardstock.
Kong Desung.
A string of corporate titles and addresses spanning 3 countries. A phone number written in elegant script on the back. This was real. He was actually offering this. A marriage of convenience that was really a declaration of war against the Kong family, against Victoria Chin, against everyone who decided she was disposable. How long do I have to decide? Zara asked, surprised by how calm her voice sounded, when her heart was hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for escape. As long as you need, Desung said. Though I'd note that Victoria and my sister-in-law are planning to make their merger announcement next week. Once that happens, the narrative becomes much harder to control. If you're going to disrupt their plans, sooner is better than later. Ideally, you'd marry me before they announce Ryan's engagement to Melissa. Imagine how that would play in the press. The scorned fiancé who married the black sheep billionaire uncle days before her ex could marry his pregnant mistress. It's deliciously scandalous. You're enjoying this, Zara said, and it wasn't quite an accusation. More an observation about the man standing before her with the satisfied expression of someone watching a chess game unfold exactly as he'd predicted. I am, Desung admitted without shame. I've spent 20 years building my empire in the shadows while my brother pretended I didn't exist. I've made more money than he'll ever see, built more successful ventures than he could dream of. And I've done it all without the family name or connections he's relied on his entire life. But I've never had the satisfaction of publicly demonstrating his failure, his weakness, his complete inadequacy. You're offering me that opportunity, Zara. Whether you realize it or not, you're the key to destroying everything he's built on prejudice and inherited privilege. I need air, Zara said suddenly, the walls of the mansion closing in on her despite the soaring ceilings and expensive architecture. I need to leave this house and think without you all staring at me like I'm a prize to be won or a problem to be solved. Of course, Desung said, stepping back immediately to give her space. My driver is outside. He can take you wherever you need to go. Home, a hotel, the airport if you want to leave the city entirely. Whatever you need. Call me when you've decided. Or don't call me and I'll understand that you've chosen to take Victoria's settlement and start over somewhere else. Either way, the choice is entirely yours. The fact that he was giving her space to decide, not pressuring or manipulating or threatening, did more to convince Zara of his sincerity than anything else he could have said. She looked at Ryan's mother and Victoria, both of whom were watching her with expressions caught between hope that she'd refuse Desung and fear that she'd accept him. Their fear was intoxicating. After hours of feeling powerless, seeing them afraid of her potential choices made something dark and vengeful unfurl in her chest. I'll call you, Zara said to Desung, pocketing his card. Then she turned to Victoria and Ryan's mother, letting them see the cold fury in her eyes. And just so we're clear, I will never take your money. I will never sign your non-disclosure agreement. I will never let you write me out of this story like I never existed. Whatever happens next, whether I accept Desung's offer or find my own path forward, you will remember that you created this situation. You turned me from someone who might have walked away quietly into someone who has nothing left to lose and every reason to burn your carefully constructed world to the ground. She walked out then, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face, despite the pain crushing her chest with every breath. Desung's driver was indeed waiting. A sleek black car that probably cost more than she'd made in her entire career. The driver opened the door without comment, as if crying women fleeing from mansion confrontations were a regular part of his job. Maybe they were, given Desung's reputation and lifestyle. Where to, miss? The driver asked politely, his eyes carefully averted from her tear-stained face. I don't know, Zara admitted, and the words broke something inside her. She didn't know where to go because the only place she'd thought of as home for the past year was Ryan's penthouse. And she couldn't go back there. Not now. Maybe not ever. Her own apartment suddenly seemed like a museum of her naivete, filled with wedding planning materials and photographs of a relationship that had been a lie. Just drive. Anywhere. I need to think. The driver nodded and pulled smoothly into Hong Kong traffic, navigating the crowded streets with practiced efficiency. Zara stared out the window at the city she'd called home for 6 years. The city where she'd built her career and her reputation and her future. It all looked different now, tainted by betrayal and humiliation, and the knowledge that the life she'd been living was a carefully constructed fiction. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. Of course. Probably his mother had called him immediately to report the disaster of Desung's intervention. Zara let it ring, watching Ryan's name flash on the screen until it went to voicemail. He called again, and again. On the fourth call, she answered, not because she wanted to hear his voice but because she wanted him to hear hers. Zara. Thank God, Ryan said. His voice rushed and panicked in a way she'd never heard before. My mother just told me what happened. About Uncle Daniel, about his insane proposal. You can't possibly be considering it. He's dangerous, Zara. He's not like us. He's involved in things you can't imagine, illegal things, violent things. He would destroy you. As opposed to how you just destroyed me? Zara asked, her voice cold and distant even to her own ears. As opposed to how your family threatened my career and slapped me in your foyer? As opposed to how you got another woman pregnant while we were engaged and then tried to buy my silence? That kind of destruction, Ryan? Because I have to say, your uncle's brand of danger is starting to look pretty appealing compared to your family's brand of cruelty. Zara, please, Ryan said. And now there was something that might have been genuine emotion in his voice. Too little, too late. I know I hurt you. I know what we did was wrong. But marrying Daniel out of revenge would ruin your life. It would make everything worse. He's using you to get to my father, to get to me. You're smarter than this. Don't let him manipulate you when you're vulnerable. Vulnerable? Zara repeated, turning the word over in her mind. Yes, I suppose I am vulnerable. My fiancé betrayed me. His family tried to erase me. And now I'm sitting in a car belonging to a man I met an hour ago, seriously considering marrying him to get revenge on the people who destroyed my life. That's definitely vulnerable. But you know what's interesting, Ryan? Your uncle was honest about his motivations. He told me exactly what he wanted and why. He didn't lie to me for 6 weeks. He didn't get someone pregnant behind my back. He didn't offer me money to disappear quietly. He offered me power and choice and the chance to write my own ending to this nightmare. That's more respect than you or your family ever showed me. He's a criminal, Ryan said desperately. Zara, I'm serious. He runs legitimate businesses, yes, but he also has connections to organized crime. Money laundering, extortion, protection rackets. The police have investigated him dozens of times but can never make charges stick because he's too careful, too connected. If you marry him, you'll be tied to that world. Your reputation, your firm, everything you've built will be tainted by association. My reputation is already ruined, Zara said flatly. The moment you sign those merger papers and announce your engagement to Melissa, everyone in our social circles will know I was replaced. They'll know I was rejected by the Kong family. They'll whisper about why I wasn't good enough, what flaws I had that made me unsuitable. Your mother will make sure of that. Victoria will spread her narrative about me being a gold digger who couldn't handle being traded up. My reputation is already dead, Ryan. At least if I marry your uncle, I'll have the resources to build a new one on my own terms. Zara, I love you, Ryan said, and the words that would have meant everything just hours ago now felt hollow and meaningless. I know I didn't show it the way I should have. I know I made terrible choices, but I do love you. Please don't do something you'll regret just to hurt me. Please. This isn't about you, Zara said, and realized as she said it that it was true. This wasn't about Ryan anymore. This wasn't even really about revenge, though the desire for it burned hot and fierce in her chest. This was about reclaiming her power, her agency, her right to write her own story instead of accepting the ending others had written for her. This is about me choosing what happens next instead of letting your family dictate my future. Goodbye, Ryan. She ended the call before he could respond, then blocked his number. Then she blocked his mother's number, Victoria's number, every Kong family contact in her phone. She sat in the back of Desung's car, watching Hong Kong slide past the windows, and pulled out his business card. The expensive cardstock felt solid and real in her fingers, more substantial than any of Ryan's promises had ever been. Zara made her decision. She called the number on the back of the card. Desung answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting for her call, as if he'd known exactly what choice she would make. "I'll marry you," Zara said, her voice steady and certain for the first time since she'd walked into Ryan's study and watched her life explode. "I'll marry you, and together we'll make them regret every moment of what they did to me. Every lie, every betrayal, every casual cruelty. They wanted me gone. Fine. But I'm not disappearing. I'm coming back with everything they feared I could be, and I'm going to remind them that some women don't stay down when you try to bury them. Some women rise up stronger, angrier, and infinitely more dangerous than before." "Good," Desung said, and she could hear the satisfaction in his voice, the dark pleasure of a predator who'd successfully lured exactly the prey he wanted. "I'll have my lawyers draw up the prenuptial agreement tonight. We can be married by Friday. And Zara, welcome to the family. The real one. The one that doesn't pretend to be civilized while practicing cruelty. We're honest about what we are. I think you'll find that refreshing after 3 years of Kong family hypocrisy." "I hope I don't regret this," Zara said quietly, staring at her reflection in the car window. She looked different already, harder somehow, as if the past few hours had burned away something soft and hopeful and left only steel behind. "You won't," Desung promised, "because unlike my nephew, I keep my promises. And I promise you this, Zara Lennox soon to be Zara Kong. They will regret underestimating you. They will regret every moment they thought you were weak enough to be discarded. And when we're done, Kong Industries will be mine, Victoria Chin's investment will be worthless, and Ryan will understand exactly what he lost when he traded you for $50 million. That's my promise to you. Revenge, power, and a partnership built on honesty instead of lies. What do you say?" "I say let's burn their world down," Zara said, and meant every word. "Let's show them what happens when they mistake kindness for weakness and silence for surrender. Let's teach them that some betrayals cost more than they ever imagined paying." And in that moment, sitting in the back of a car owned by a dangerous man she barely knew, making plans to marry him out of spite and fury and the desperate need to reclaim her stolen power, Zara Lennox felt more alive than she had in 3 years of being the perfect, accommodating, suitable fiancé to a man who'd never deserved her. The future was uncertain, possibly dangerous, definitely complicated. But it was hers. Finally, brutally, beautifully hers. And that was worth any risk.